Some dare call it conspiracy.
Welcome to the Some Dare Call It Conspiracy podcast, hosted by Brent Lee and Neil Sanders. After nearly 20 years exploring the world of conspiracy culture, we are taking our guests and listeners on a guided tour of the rabbit hole. Our mission? To discover where the truth lies.
Awesome.
But yeah, man, keen to get into this and keen to this is going to be brutal. This is going to be what, a two-parter then?
Probably because I've written about 27,000 words about it. So let us begin. So the Turner Diaries, this is going to be fucked up. I do apologize. This is a horrific book. We're going to go through sort of a bit of the background of it before we actually start. But it's one of these things where lots of people might have heard of it and very, very few people have read it for good reason. Because, well, for several good reasons. One, it's horrifically racist. Two, it has inspired many, many acts of terrorism and murder. And three, it's appallingly written. It's really, really shit. And it's just a bad book in sort of every sense of the word. The fear that I have as well is that we don't want to sort of glorify this. We don't want to be kind of ghoulish about it and stuff like that, because, as I say, it is a really grim text and stuff. So this is going to require a degree of sensitivity. And luckily enough, I am a very sensitive guy, particularly when it comes to political correctness and stuff like that. So I think we're going to be okay.
We'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll be absolutely fine. So what is the Turner Diaries? Right, the Turner Diaries was first published in 1978, and I know what you're thinking. Oh, right in the middle of punk. No, it's not. It's a novel that's very popular among far right extremists and Nazis. It was written by a man called William Pierce, although he used the pseudonym Andrew MacDonald. And just so people get a background to what the plot is, it portrays the violent overthrow of the federal government and the systematic killing of Jews and non-whites in order to establish an Aryan-only world. So that's what we're talking about. Now, it first came out, it was syndicated by this far-right group called National Alliance, and they had a magazine called Attack. And from 1975 to 1978, this was put out as like a serial in the magazine, and then eventually was published by National Alliance's publishing house, National Vanguard, which was in 1978. So it's not a brilliant bestseller. It's sold about in 2001 it was said to have sold an estimated 300,000 copies. So it's that's more than it should have sold. But this is the thing. It is quite an obscure text. So this is why we're sort of looking at it, because, as I say, a lot of people will have heard about it. A lot of people probably want to know what's in it, but don't want to read it. Because why would you? In 1996, it was republished by, now this is really grim, Barricade Books. They put it out in 1996. Anyone can guess why they decided to issue this book in 1996?
Was this off the back of the Oklahoma bombing?
It was. It was off the
right.
That's the classy reason that
Shameless.
it's horrific, isn't it? However, they put a foreword in the book that said that they completely denounced this book, the book that they were selling, off the back
fine
of,
then.
Off the back of the terror attack that it inspired.
It's literally disaster capitalism.
Oh, very much so, yeah. So Lyle Stewart, who's the owner of Barricade Books, was criticised by several organisations and individuals, among others the Southern Poverty Law Centre, Maurice Dees, who's the founder of the SPLC, and the Simon Wiesenthal Centre. Dees stated that they had found the book in almost every single case of white supremacy, neo-Nazi, Ku Klux Klan type activity that resulted in violence that caused deaths and injuries to many innocent people. Now, Lyle Stewart of the book company defended his decision to republish the book by saying, "I felt it was important that the average American see how sick these minds are and how dreadful and perverted their thinking process is." The book is widely available for free online. It used to be sold in gun shows, and bizarrely used to be advertised in Soldier of Fortune magazine. I don't remember that. It was that magazine. It's for like militia types. It's basically about guns and ammunition and survivalist sort of shit.
Bunkers and shit like that
kind of stuff. Yeah, basically, and you could get it through by ordering it through those types of books, which gives you an idea of the sort of demographic that it might be aimed at.
I mean, I first kind of heard about this book. I don't know if you guys remember the kind of Louis Theroux documentaries. Where he kind of went to, and he was off the back of kind of the Oklahoma bombing and explored these kind of militia men and these far right groups. And that's where I kind of first heard about this kind of book in kind of the popular kind of culture. It was through that, and again that link with the gun shows, gun rights, and the NRA kind of far right stuff.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it was. It used to say on the back of the book that this book was labelled the Bible of the racist right by the FBI. Now, here's the twist: it wasn't. That was a marketing stunt by William Pierce.
Of course,
but the fact that he proudly labels his book, that the FBI have called this the Bible of the racist right, shows you where he's coming from. He's not afraid to be called a racist by any. Now, the FBI actually described it as a significant work and foundation document closely embraced by the leadership as well as rank and file members of the right wing and white supremacist movement. And as I said before, it's influenced quite a lot of people. Timothy McVeigh was an avid reader, and he also used to sell copies of it at gun shows. And there's remarkable similarities between the bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building that in Oklahoma, and there's a scene in the Turner Diaries which basically graphically describes the preparation of a bomb, which is used to destroy the national headquarters of the FBI. Also, the Turner Diaries is seen as the inspiration for this violent extremes group known as the Order. There's a film that's recently come out. It's got Jude Law in it, I think, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
And that is about this particular group. They committed a series of murders, robberies, counterfeiting, and also they bombed a synagogue. And the Order is named after us. Well, we'll come to that as we go through the book, basically.
What I always found interesting, I hope you don't mind me I might be leaping ahead here, Neil. It's just in terms of, and again, I'm no kind of expert in kind of fascism, but what was really interesting about this book and how it came out in America at that kind of time, how it became so popular, was it kind of, and I know Pierce himself, he kind of left the American Nazi Party and kind of, because he didn't want to have swastikas and stuff like that. He wanted to move away from that. And it's just weird how often in fascism, Hitler, all the kind of big examples of fascism is they kind of come to power through the democratic system. And it was about building a political party. Whereas this is very uniquely American because it's so closely tied with the idea of gun rights. And I know it certainly did influence even things like David Copeland, which I'm sure we might talk about. But it's so American, and it moved fascism away from being about building a political party and taking the state system to suddenly fascism being almost a revolutionary vanguard underground. So it's always fascinated me. Like, I've never read it. I've avoided ever reading it. So I'm frightened for how deep you're going to go into this, Neil. But just as a pivotal text in how it's influenced the far right globally and the whole kind of lone wolf phenomenon is frightening, you know?
Well, it's estimated to have influenced the perpetrators of over 200 murders.
Wow.
Yeah. Jeez, so this is the thing, and just to alleviate's the wrong word. to reinforce your fears. Yeah, we're going to go pretty deep into this. Yeah, like we're going to go through the entire book, chapter by chapter. I'm going to explain the entire plot, and we're going to be reading paragraphs that give you a flavour of what the book is like, basically. So, yeah, we're going to be pretty familiar with it by the end, I would say.
So this one's probably not for the faint-hearted.
No, absolutely not. Now, again, so William Pierce, who wrote the book, he was actually a teacher at Oregon State University for a time. And he was briefly a member of the anti-communist John Birch Society, but he left them because he didn't think that they were quite racist enough. Yeah, this is it. He has at various times been affiliated with George Lincoln Rockwell's American Nazi Party, but as you say, he moved away from that, and Willis Carto's National Youth Alliance. Now, Carto published the American Free Press, and some very familiar people in the conspiracy world were in the American Free Press publishing articles quite regularly. Ron Paul, Paul Craig Roberts, who used to appear on InfoWars quite a lot, Eustace Mullins, who Holocaust denier, and Jim Tucker, who was popularized the concept of the Bilderberg Group. He also started, Carto started the far-right think tank Liberty Lobby, which published Spotlight magazine, that popularized the idea that Laetrile from Apricot Stones is anti-cancer. Which is something that I've seen David Icke talk about, and I wonder if he realizes that came from a right-leaning Nazi-affiliated think tank. They also were the first people to publish the idea that E. Howard Hunt, who was the Watergate burglar, was the real assassin of JFK, although he sued them for this, so he probably wasn't. But Pierce, the other thing, as you were saying earlier, he didn't want to join the American Nazi Party until it was renamed the National Socialist White People's Party in 1967. But he was also a trustee of the Cosmotheist Church, which is a Christian identity group which shares membership with National Alliance, which is the Nazi group. Now, this Cosmotheist Church, it holds the pseudo-religious it is a pseudo-religious identity church, and it holds that white people are the chosen people of the Bible, and that Jews and people of color are the tainted children of Satan. And interestingly, Mormons used to think exactly the same thing, which is grim, basically. Pierce has also written another book other than the Turner Diaries. It's actually a prequel, and it's called Hunter. Now, Hunter is the story of a drive-by killer who begins murdering interracial couples and assassinating Jews in order to cleanse America. And the book is dedicated to Joseph Paul Franklin, who firebombed several synagogues and is serving multiple life sentences for murdering two black men with a sniper rifle. So this is the sort of this is what we're going to be dealing with. So this is the blurb on the back of the book. What will you do when they come to take your guns? Earl Turner and his fellow patriots face this question and are forced underground when the US government bans the private possession of firearms and stages the mass gun raids to round up suspected gun owners. The hated equality police begin hunting them down, but the patriots fight back with a campaign of sabotage and assassination. An all-out race war occurs as the struggle escalates. Turner and his comrades suffer terribly, but their ingenuity and boldness in devising and executing new methods of guerrilla warfare lead to a victory of cataclysmic intensity and worldwide scope. The FBI has labelled the Turner Diaries the Bible of the racist right. If the government had the power to ban books, this one would be at the top of the list. The Turner Diaries is the most controversial book in America today, and it's unlike any you've ever read. So, yeah. So, are we ready? Because
we are.
Are we sitting comfortably?
I'm dumbstruck already, but yeah, go on.
Mate, This is going to be a journey.
I already
I'm
thought
gonna-
here
I'm
we
gonna
go
need
when
to-
you called him Earl Turner. I was like, oh, that's an American name there.
It's a very American name. There's a lot of things that are very American in this. It's quite a unique book. But as I say, you've got to shine a light on these things. Like, what we hope to do is point out how fucking stupid this book is, and we're going to do that by the tactic of using the book itself. That's why I'm going to be reading these passages and stuff like that, because it needs to show you how disgusting this book is, how racist this book is, but also how very, very stupid this book is.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we want to do. And again, this has influenced a lot of people. This is a book that a lot of people possibly have heard of, but have never read, because why the fuck would you? I've read it twice. Anyway.
A sucker for punishment.
Research it.
Yeah. Anyway, this is the foreword of the book. There exists such an extensive body of literature on the Great Revolution, including the memoirs of virtually every one of its leading figures who survived into the new era, and yet another book dealing with the events and circumstances of that time of cataclysmic upheaval and rebirth may seem superfluous. The Turner Diaries, however, provides an insight into the background of the Great Revolution, which is uniquely valuable for two reasons. One, it is a fairly detailed and continuous record of a portion of the struggle during the years immediately before the culmination of the revolution, written as it happened on a day-to-day basis. Thus, it is free of the distortion which often afflicts hindsight. Although the diaries of other participants in the mighty conflict are existent, none which has yet been published provides a complete and detailed record. 2, it is written from the viewpoint of a rank and file member of the organisation, and although it consequently suffers from myopia occasionally, it is a totally frank document. Unlike the accounts recorded by some of the leaders of the revolution, its author did not have one eye on his place in history as he wrote. As we read the pages which follow, we get a better understanding than from any other source, probably of the true thoughts and feelings of the men and women whose struggle and sacrifice saved our race in its time of greatest peril and brought about the new era. That's nothing to do with the hats, by the way. I don't want to smear them. In fact, I'm pretty sure that all involved with the Turner Diaries would be pretty appalled at the sort of people that wear those hats. But anyway, so.
But straight away, this is like a sci-fi, right?
Yeah,
so this is kind of like a...
It's a dystopic. Like, so basically, it's set in the mysterious future of 1991. So this is it, and it explains that Turner. So what it is the diaries of Earl Turner. Earl Turner's alive in the 90s, and this is at a time of great upheaval, which will be explained. And this is the sort of the point of the book. We are way in the future, and this is going to retell how the Great Revolution happened, right? And it explains that Turner is 35 in 1991. Right, and he's trained as an electrical engineer. Right, so here's a guy who was 16 in 1977, but I'm guessing that he didn't really like punk, and he probably thought that heavy metal was a bit raucous. I think when hair metal came around, he was probably aghast. I think he probably thought goth was silly. He's on the wrong continent for Manchester. He missed rave, right, and he's just a pinch too old to embrace grunge. So no wonder he's angry. Like, now this what Turner's
explains a lot now you've said that.
Wait, you'll see.
For a whole new context.
Well, this is the thing, and what Turner's musical tastes are is one of the topics that the book stubbornly refuses to address. But I think we can presume it isn't reggae. He strikes me probably as a prog fan, to be quite honest. Like, I assume he likes the song Whiter Shade of Pale by Procol Harum, but probably not for normal reasons. So it continues. The diaries span barely 2 years in Earl Turner's life, yet they give us an intimate acquaintance with one of those whose names is inscribed in the record of martyrs. For that reason alone, his words should have a special significance for all of us who in our school days were given the task of memorizing the name of all the martyrs in that sacred record handed down to us by our ancestors. So as you can see, it's fucking ridiculously overblown. Like it's very, very grandiose, and again, it's bad sci-fi. So it begins. Chapter 1. September 16th, 1991. Today, it finally began. After all these years of talking and nothing but talking, we have finally taken our first action. We are at war with the system, and it is no longer a war of words. And just to prove my previous point, September 1991 is when Nevermind came out, and also Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. So I think that actually proves my point, basically.
Wait. Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 came out.
Yeah.
Civil War.
Oh, there you go.
Wow.
There. Absolutely. That's what's piqued his anger very, very clearly. So Turner's hiding with members of this group, the Organization. Now, the Organization is a terrorist organization that's opposed to the government, and the government is known as the system, because this writer does not do subtlety. Now, George, who is another member of the group, has warned them all that arrests have begun, presumably of other members of the organization. Now that we have begun, we must continue with the plan we have been developing so carefully. Ever since the gun raids 2 years ago, what a blow that was to us, and how it shamed us. All that brave talk by patriots. The government will never take my guns away, and then nothing but meek submission when it happened. So again, like this is in the opening chapter. You can see exactly what audience this is aimed at, and this is why such books like this are quite dangerous, because basically, like, you're using an issue like gun control as a sort of soft in to Nazism. Essentially, it doesn't stay soft for very long. 18 months ago, all guns were banned under the Cohen Act. And yes, that is a
Cohen Act. Oh my God. There's no subtlety, no nuance to this guy's writing at all, right?
No, not at all. No. Now, the Cohen Act gave the penalty of 10 years in prison for hiding. Wait, Greg, you've no idea. You've got no fucking clue. I'm telling you, this is incredible. So the Cohen Act basically gives a penalty of 10 years in prison for hiding guns, but many didn't hand in their guns, and so they were raided by agents of the system. And Turner describes his house being raided all the way back in 1989. Now, he has got a load of guns hidden in an oil barrel, buried in the forest miles away from his home. But he decided that he wanted to have a .357 Magnum stashed inside the door frame of his home. And he's confident that it can't be found. But a police search would never uncover it. And these inexperienced blacks couldn't find it in a million years. Yeah, it's one of those. It's very, very open in its idea that black people are very stupid and also have a predilection for crime, which is one of the main themes of the book, which we'll come on to shortly. And
am I right in this that all the police are black as well?
Most of the police are black for reasons that are stupid. And racist, but
I think that's going to be the answer to most decisions in this book.
There is a very specific reason. There's a convoluted law, which we'll come on to when we get to it, which is very reminiscent of today. I'll just give you a hint before we come on to it, but two-tier policing. Keep that in mind.
Oh, God, yeah.
So his house is raided at 5 a.m. by 4 black police officers who are armed with baseball bats and knives. Because, of course, they fucking are. But these are special deputies for the Northern Virginia Human Relations Council. And they're searching for guns. And Turner hasn't turned in the 8 guns that he was previously known to have bought before the gun ban, so he's suspect. Which is one of those things where it's you were bound to get. That's stupid. Buy illegal guns or something.
Also, why aren't you sending armed police if you're going to look for someone who has guns?
Who's got a gun? Yeah. I think it's basically because they want to just well, we know what the reason is. It's not subtle. It's because they want to depict black men as thugs that would use melee weapons. And but it's he initially thinks it's a robbery. My first thought was that they were robbers.
The Errol Musk.
Yeah. Robberies of this sort have become all too common since the Cohen Act, with groups of blacks forcing their way into white homes to rob and rape, knowing that even if their victims had guns, they probably would not dare use them. Which obviously raises the question, then why keep them?
Yeah.
Like, it explains the reason for that later, but at the minute...
Are you telling me there's going to be plot holes in this, Neil?
Well, yeah, there's huge plot holes in this, and by the time it finishes, you'll be astonished what they have to do to achieve their white utopia. But no spoilers. But yeah, there is certain laws that explain why they potentially wouldn't shoot people, but they come onto that later. So a white man called Tepper arrives, and he's in charge of the raids, and he uses a stud finder, like builders use, and he finds Turner's hidden gun really, really quickly. And Turner's neighbors are also arrested, and the raiders, they keep referring to Turner as a known racist. Racist is a term that is used a lot in this book, and every single time it's in inverted commas. Every single time, like as if to say, well, it's exactly to say that racist is racist. This is racist. This is just, I mean, we hate black people and all non-whites and Jews and Muslims and everybody really, but it's racist. Such a stupid woke term. Like, and this was in the 70s as well. So it's ridiculous. But again, this shows him to be an overconfident idiot, right? They did find his gun really easily, which basically shows that it's a very badly written book. Now, these raids lead to over 800,000 arrests. So there's 800,000 white people labelled as racists who've been keeping these guns. But due to the vast numbers, they basically release everybody after a few days because they haven't really got anywhere to put them. And the book continues. One of the details which bothered people was that the raiders had, for the most part, exempted black neighbourhoods from the searches. The explanation given at first was that since racists, in inverted commas, were the ones primarily suspected of harbouring firearms, there was relatively little need to search black homes. And this is very much stated in the book as if it's unreasonable. But in literally the previous fucking paragraph, he's explained that nearly 1 million white people were in fact actually hiding guns, thus nullifying his point completely. And that will be a theme that goes on in this book, basically. So, back in the present day of the future, which is 1991, which is our past, obviously. The organisation is torn between lying low and using the sympathy garnered from the public after these seemingly unfair raids, and assassinating federal judges and newspaper editors and legislators and other system figures. And they're very possibly triggered also by the recent release and subsequent success of Boys in the Hood by John Singleton, which was released just prior to the start of this book.
You need to stop pegging this against real cultural events because there's such a gulf.
You're going to be very, very disappointed.
I was going to say, keep doing it.
So the public mood shifts, right? And they decide not to act yet. By act, they mean kill a load of police and stuff like that. And the book continues. As soon as the public had been reassured by the media that they were in no danger, that the government was cracking down only on racists, fascists, and other antisocial elements who had kept illegal weapons, most relaxed again and went back to their TV and funny papers. Now, again, this is depicted in the book as completely unreasonable. Except he is a racist, he is a fascist, he's open about it, and he did have illegal weapons. As did all of the other people that he knows who have joined this terrorist organisation that is explicitly racist. So, again, but it continues. As we realised this, we were more discouraged than ever. We'd based all our plans, in fact, the whole rationale of the organisation on the assumption that Americans were inherently opposed to tyranny. And when the system becomes oppressive enough, they could be led to overthrow it. We had badly underestimated the degree to which materialism had corrupted our fellow citizens, as well as to the extent to which their feelings could be manipulated by the mass media. Feelings which are to not hate black people or Jewish people simply for existing. That's the brainwashing that he's talking about in this particular portion of the book. So basically, they're all a bit concerned because the threat of rearrest for the guns is hanging over them. And also it makes it difficult for Turner to get work. So what they do is they decide to start increasing their attempts to recruit new members. Early last year, we began putting a number of new members, unknown to the political police, into police agencies and various quasi-official organisations, such as the Human Relations Council. They served as our early warning network and otherwise kept us generally informed of the system's plans against us. So they've got like sleeper agents in the police, a bit like in the film The Departed, where Matt Damon is that. Although I can't imagine Mark Wahlberg being involved in racially motivated violence. So never.
But no, not Mark Wahlberg.
No,
Surely
not
not.
Marky Mark. Absolutely not.
No.
So that's chapter 1 of the Turner Diaries. It's quite the thing, isn't it? And I'm telling you, you see, it's so bad I couldn't even think of a word. I just had to use a noise. Right. So we're on to chapter 2. Turner, with Henry, Catherine, and George, have managed to find a small apartment to rent under a fake name, and they've only got about $50 as their bank accounts have been frozen, and they've got limited supplies, and they've only got a bicycle for transport. And I did wonder whether it was a rally racer, because that would be quite fitting. But anyway, we just beat a new law which requires a landlord to furnish the police with a social security number of every new tenant, just like when a person opens a bank account. And so again, this is playing on fears that actually still sort of like are pervasive within conspiracy circles, and also sort of privacy advocacy groups and stuff like that. That governments have too much data on you and require too much information that could be used to track and follow you. But it continues. George has met up with Unit 9. And Unit 9 is this other group from the organisation. And they're planning to create a network of groups. And George meets with Unit 9 and they sell him a car. So the network will be established in 10 days. But until then, we're on our own. Furthermore, when our unit joins the network, it is expected to have already solved its supply problems and be ready to go into action in concert with other units. If we had more money, we could solve all our problems, including the fuel problem. Gasoline is always available on the black market, of course, at $10 a gallon, which is nearly twice what it costs at a filling station. Now, I don't know whether you spotted that, but basically, so that they're creating this sort of network, and they have to be able to sort of function and sort of kick up and stuff like that. And it's almost like a sort of mafia thing where basically they are expected to do stuff, or like a pyramid scheme. which is more
fascist pyramid scheme.
Fascist pyramid scheme, yeah, basically. Now,
what's interesting is like the seeds this is kind of laying, even like, we laughed at this idea of within the police and within the army, that they have people within the system to give them like a heads up. And actually the reality is in America, there are cases of people in the military and people in the police
and the prison services and stuff like that.
With links to the far right.
Q.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is the thing. Again, this is what we're going to see as we go through this book. It's like, not only has it sort of influenced a lot of the horrific acts, but it's also one of these things where you're going to be going, hang on, that's a bit familiar. That sounds very much like something that Alex Jones has said. That sounds remarkably similar to what David Icke was saying.
And wasn't this book linked with QAnon when Amazon got rid of a load of books that it sold?
It could well have been. Like, I'm not surprised because it's a similar sort of thing. It's, we're an underground going against an evil government. And, so I could certainly see why it would. It's illegal in France and it's illegal in Germany. I'm not sure if Amazon does carry it or not, but it's, I wouldn't be surprised if it was banned for the connection to Q. So Turner suggests that they rob a liquor store. My inclination was just to walk into the first liquor store we came to, knock the manager on the head with a brick, and scoop up the money from the cash register. Henry wouldn't go along with that, though. He said that we couldn't use means which contradicted our ends. If we began preying on the public to support ourselves, we will be viewed as a gang of common criminals, regardless of how lofty our aims are. You might want to remember that. Just put a pin in that. Like, that they don't want to be viewed as a gang of common criminals or to prey on the public.
I'll put a brick on it.
Yeah. Worse, we will eventually begin to think of ourselves the same way. Henry looks at everything in terms of our ideology. If something doesn't fit, he'll have nothing to do with it. Anyway, he convinced me that if we're going to rob liquor stores, we have to do it in a socially conscious way. If we're going to cave in people's heads with bricks, they must be people who deserve it. By comparing the liquor stores listed in the yellow pages of the telephone directory with a list of supporting members of the Northern Virginia Human Relations Council, which had been filched for us by the girls we sent over there to do volunteer work for them, we finally settled on Berman's Liquors and Wines. Saul I. Berman, proprietor. And yes, that does sound Jewish. And it never explains why exactly he deserves robbing or why his shop is a socially conscious target, other than his name.
That's what I was just going to say, his name.
Yeah.
That's his description, is it? Yeah.
Right. So they decide to go in there armed with soap bars in socks. So very much like that scene in Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket, yeah.
Yeah. And they go in there and there's a black man working there. And so they knock him out and they steal $800 from the till. 3 stores down, Henry suddenly stopped and pointed on the sign on the door, Berman's Deli. Without a moment's hesitation, he pushed open the door and walked in. Spurred on by a sudden reckless impulse, I followed him instead of trying to stop him. Berman himself was behind the counter. At the back, Henry lured him out by asking the price of an item near the front of the store, which Berman couldn't see clearly from behind the counter. As he passed me, I let him have it in the back of the head as hard as I could. I felt the bar of soap shatter from the force of the blow. Berman went down, yelling at the top of his lungs. Then he started crawling rapidly towards the back of the store, screaming loudly enough to wake the dead. I was completely unnerved by the racket and stood frozen. Not Henry, though. He leaped onto Berman's back, seized him by the hair and cut his throat from ear to ear in one swift motion. Why? There was really no need to do that, at all, right? Anyway, it continues. The silence lasted about 1 second. Then a fat, grotesque-looking woman of about 60, probably Berman's wife, came charging out of the back room, waving a meat cleaver and emitting an ear-shrieking piece. Henry let fly at her with a large glass jar of kosher pickles and scored a direct hit. She went down in a spray of pickles and broken glass. That's a 60-year-old woman. It's just smashed her in the face. Honestly, this is mental. This is very clearly.
It's the detail that the pickles were kosher as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now,
he's really driving home a point here, isn't he?
It is, but this is absolutely nothing compared to where it will go and to how extreme it will get. So, buckle up. So Turner is quite frightened and he chastises himself. I was terrified. It was more than an hour before I'd stopped shaking and I'd got enough a grip of myself to talk without stuttering. Some terrorist. So Turner and George, they plan to drive to Pennsylvania to collect their hidden guns, and so they buy bootleg petrol. And Turner explains that the system is both, which is the government, is both oppressive and corrupt. partly due to the number of non-whites in positions at every level of the bureaucracy. Yeah, it's not subtle. The silence about us in the newspapers is worrisome. The Berman thing the other day wasn't connected to us, of course, and it was given only a paragraph in today's Post. Robberies of that sort, even where there is a killing involved, are so common these days that they merit no more attention than a traffic accident. But the fact that the government launched a massive roundup of known organisation members last Wednesday, and that nearly all of us, more than 2,000 persons, have managed to slip through their fingers and drop out of sight, why isn't that in the papers? The news media are collaborating closely with the political police, of course. But what is their strategy against us? There was one small Associated Press article on the back page of yesterday's paper mentioning the arrest of 9 racists in Chicago and 4 in Los Angeles on Wednesday. The article said that all 13 who were arrested were members of the same organisation, evidently ours, but no further details were given. Curious. Now, you may remember that there was a woman living with them called Catherine, and it turns out that she's really good at disguises. So, and she helps all the members change their appearance. Yes, that's right. The woman's good at makeup and clothes because it's not just racist, bigoted, and insane. There's a massive smattering of casual sexism thrown in for good measure, basically. So, it's in many ways it's indiscriminate in its discrimination. So, so that's chapter 2. Chapter 3. Turner and Henry travel to the woods of Pennsylvania to retrieve their guns buried in an oil drum, but they can't get the drum out of the ground, so they decide to just open it and take the guns out. And they only bring mail bags, and the guns are so heavy, so it takes them 3 trips, which are 2 miles each, to transport the guns to the car. Now, the thing that struck me is, like, why aren't they living in the woods? Like, you know, these are supposed to be sort of militia types and stuff like that. Evidently, these woods are not, like, bothered by people. They've been able to dig up these fucking guns and walk backwards and forwards and stuff like that. Go and live in the woods. But they don't. So,
again, more plot holes, Neil.
Well, it's just badly written, basically, yeah. But on the way back to Washington, we stopped at a small roadside cafe near Hagerstown for sandwiches and coffee. There were about a dozen people in the place, and the 11 o'clock news was just beginning on the TV set behind the counter when we walked in. It was a news broadcast I'll never forget. The big story of the day was that the organisation had been up to. The big story of the day was what the organisation had been up to in Chicago. The system, it seems, had killed one of our people, and in turn, we had killed 3 of theirs, and then engaged in a spectacular and successful gunfight with the authorities. Nearly the whole newscast was occupied in recounting these events. We already knew from the papers that 9 of our members had been arrested in Chicago last week, and apparently they had had a rough time in the Cook County jail, where one of them had died. It was impossible to be sure exactly what had happened from what the TV announcer had said, but if the system had behaved true to form, the authorities had stuck our people individually into cells full of blacks and then shut their eyes and their ears to what ensued. And again, this is presented as unreasonable in the book, and it would be had in the previous chapter they not described caving a black guy's head, slitting the throat of an elderly Jewish man, and beating his wife to death with a glass jar. So again, there's a bit of a persecution complex that some might see as a little bias that runs through this book. So anyway, the Chicago organisation decided to get revenge. Anyway, the day after our man, the newscaster, said his name was Carl Hodges, someone I've never heard of before. Anyway, the day after our man, the newscaster said his name was Carl Hodges, someone I'd not heard of before, was killed. The Chicago organisation fulfilled a promise they'd made more than a year ago. In the event one of our people was ever seriously hurt in a Chicago jail, they ambushed the Cook County sheriff outside his home and blew his head off with a shotgun. They left a note pinned to his body which read, "This is for Carl Hodges." That was last Saturday night. On Sunday, the system was up in arms. The sheriff of Cook County had been a political bigwig, a front ranch Shabbos goy, and they were really raising hell. Yep. So, mate, I'm telling you, this is nothing. Although they broadcast the news only to the Chicago area on Sunday, they trotted out several pillars of the community there to denounce the assassination and the organization in special TV appearances. One of the spokesmen was a responsible conservative, and another was the head of the Chicago Jewish community. All of them described the organization as a gang of racist bigots and called on all right-thinking Chicagoans to cooperate with the political police in apprehending the racists who had killed the sheriff. Well, early this morning, the responsible conservative lost both his legs and suffered severe internal injuries when a bomb wired to the ignition of his car exploded. The Jewish spokesman was even less fortunate. Someone walked up to him while he was waiting for an elevator in the lobby of his office building, pulled a hatchet from under his coat, cleaved the good Jew's head from crown to shoulder blades, then disappeared in the rush hour crowd. The organization immediately claimed responsibility for both acts. And again,
just fucking ISIS, mate.
Yes,
yeah.
Well, that's a theme that might pop up later. No, they simultaneously object to the term racist whilst being racist.
Yeah.
And using it as a term of oppression against white people. Like, you call us racist just because we hate all non-whites. Can't you see that it's you that are the real racists? That's what it's trying to say. And it's fucking stupid.
This is just all like a fascist kind of wet dream, just kind of escalating into
very
more
much so.
Victim complex, escalating into
it's all of that
more violence.
And it's all of that. It's all of that just rolled up to 11. When we get onto one of the main plot points, you'll see how it is basically one of the fears that is very prevalent today, absolutely dialed up to 11. And that's, again, a reason that we're doing this, because basically, like, that's where these stupid ideas lead to. They have to start. No one starts at 11 other than Spinal Tap, right? You've got to start and be introduced into these things and become indoctrinated. And before you know it, basically, like, very, very stupid ideas. I'm telling you, like, when this main plot point comes in, you're going to be like, that's like Alex Jones's fucking nightmare. Like, we'll come on to that. So there's a second shootout that's broadcast on TV. And Turner is rather disgusted at this. He explains that the TV is hungry to see killing. And what he's trying to imply here is like some sort of societal sickness, right? Well, seemingly forgetting that he's part of a fucking terror organization that kills people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that, right?
And William Pierce is obviously criticizing that while making a book that also does the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's very, very stupid. So, in this shootout that's broadcast on the television, the organization members use a sniper rifle to pick off black cops. And this was emanated by several criminals that were influenced by the Turner Diaries. So the TV announces that the racists get away. And when this is said, a waitress smiles, indicating to Turner that there's a feeling of support in the general public. Or maybe she wanted a tip. Like, that reminded me a bit of the people who are like, I think the girl in the shop fancies me. She keeps telling me all these clothes look really good on me and that I should buy them. It's like, yeah, all right, mate.
There's this real kind of vanguardist kind of, just bubbling under the narrative, right? That they are the select few and the people will support them, but they're the ones that have to push it over.
Well, that was also the name of the publishing company, National Vanguard.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. So the news scene switched to Washington, where the Attorney General of the United States had called a special news conference. The Attorney General announced to the nation that the federal government was throwing all of its police agencies into an effort to root out the organization. He described us as depraved racist criminals who were motivated solely by hatred and who wanted to undo all the progress toward true equality, which had been made by the system in recent years. All citizens were warned to be alert and assist the government in breaking up the racist conspiracy. And that's actually a completely accurate description. Even by Earl Turner's own standards, it's a completely accurate description.
Pretty spot on, right? Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
But again, as you said before, this is absolute victimization porn. It's like, oh
Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
when will I catch a break? The straight white male. Like, it is very, very daft. So the system, the government announces that anyone helping these terrorists will be dealt with severely. And Turner compares this to Stalin's Russia. And also they are very anti-communist as well. So this is why he's saying that. And again, put a pin in that because that might pop up later. So these news broadcasts actually increase support for the organization. And Turner wants to give leaflets to everybody inside the restaurant. Like, because, that's really a good idea to announce that we're one of the terrorists and like, we'd like you all to join. But he decides not to, or he's warned against it. And they explain how this works, right? Okay. The underground unit consists of members who are known to the authorities and have been marked for arrest. Their function is to destroy the system through direct action. The legal units consist of members not presently known to the system. Indeed, it would be impossible to prove that most of them are members. In this, we have taken a page from the Communist book. Their role is to provide us with intelligence, funding, legal defense, and other support. Whenever an illegal spots a potential recruit, he is supposed to turn the information over to a legal, who will approach the prospect and sound him out. The legals, who are supposed to handle all the low-risk propaganda activities such as leafleting. Strictly speaking, we should not even have had any organisation leaflets with us. Now, anti-communism is often a euphemism for Nazism or a justification for far-right beliefs. And also the New World Order conspiracy theory has versions where it's a communist takeover. But also, communist has been tied to Jews by people like Hitler, and also by conspiracy theorists who talk about Jewish Bolshevism. And this is partly based on the idea that Lenin and Trotsky were Jewish, although Lenin and Trotsky both denounced that you don't have religion in communism. Also, a lot of people go, Marx was Jewish, and again, he was actually very opposed to Jews. Do you know that Marx actually wrote an essay called "On the Jewish Problem" just before World War II. And that's where Hitler got the concept of the Jewish problem, because what he was talking about really was like, is there a homeland for the Jews and stuff like that? But there was a strong streak of anti-Semitism, particularly in early Marx's work. And so, again, all of these conspiracy theories are just nonsense, essentially. So they move into a new safe house, and Turner fixes the heating, the lighting, and the plumbing, and to make it livable.
So at the beginning of the chapter, you were asking, why don't they live in the forest?
Yeah.
Why don't they live in the woods? I was thinking about it, and I don't think it's really a plot hole.
No.
To be fair, they are part of the takeover. They have to be in the city, ready for it when it happens.
That's true.
That is true. Yeah. Fair enough. So, chapter 4. Turner is setting up this network, this communication system using radio, human couriers, and codes. The system is arresting anybody that's affiliated with the organisation as a response to Chicago. So, Turner explains. One thing on which they're working is a computerized universal internal passport system. Every person 12 years or more of age will be issued with a passport and will be required, under threat of severe penalties, to carry it at all times. Real ID cards. Ooh. Not only can a person be stopped on the street by any police agent and asked to show his passport, but they've worked out a plan to make the passport necessary for many everyday operations, such as purchasing an airline, bus, or train ticket, registering in a motel or hotel, and receiving any medical service in a hospital or clinic. All ticket counters, motels, physicians' offices, and the like will be equipped with computer terminals linked by telephone lines to a huge national data bank and computer center. A customer's magnetically coded passport number will be routinely fed into the computer whenever he buys a ticket, pays a bill, or registers for a service. If there is any irregularity, a warning light will go off on the nearest police precinct station, showing the location of the offending computer terminal and the unfortunate customer. They've been developing this internal passport system for several years now and have everything worked out in detail. The only reason it hasn't been put into operation has been squawks from civil liberties groups who see it as another big step towards a police state, which of course it is. But now the system is sure it can override the resistance of the libertarians by using us as an excuse. anything is permitted in the fight against racism. Now, who does that remind you of? It reminds me a lot of Alex Jones, old Alex Jones. Actually, the book. Actually, to be fair, the book reminds me of Alex Jones in a lot of ways. but that specifically, also vaccine passport hysteria, lies about the Chinese social credit system and stuff like that.
All of this just resonates with all the kind of conspiratorial stuff from the 90s through to like the present day. Like,
yes, exactly.
The roots are all there,
and that's how they sort of get people into these sort of militia groups and stuff like that. And also that's the in. That's the in the sort of feeder, so to speak.
You did say he was in John Birch, didn't he?
He was. He left because it was not racist enough for him.
But too liberal. But he did continue the conspiracy beliefs.
Oh yeah,
from it, though.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and they say that's the John Birch were convinced that the New World Order was a communist takeover. Everything was a communist plot to that.
But he wouldn't condemn Jews. That's what it was with Robert Welch. Well, he said that the insiders are not Jewish. Basically, the people who run the whole show are not the Jewish people.
Oh, I see.
That's probably where he was like, "Oh, you're not racist enough."
Yeah. It fucking is.
Goddamn is.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's so funny how this has taken like the language of the left of like communism. It's talking about them as comrades, as revolutionaries, as like fighting against the system.
Yeah.
It's again how the far right is positioned now, especially post kind of COVID, as like the right is the radical alternative to the mainstream. So yeah, it's fascinating again, just seeing how these roots have come through.
Conservative is the new punk. It very much is.
Oh God. Yeah.
It couldn't be more different. So anyway, Turner goes to Maryland to visit Unit 2 and help them set up a transmitter because they're absolutely clueless regarding electrical systems. Now, this paragraph is going to go on for a long time, and it will be very clear later why I've done this. Like this is to give you a flavour of the book and how laboriously he describes shit, and particularly shit that no one's really interested in, except when he describes how to make the bomb that Timothy McVeigh then basically copied the instructions from. But
these are the Easter eggs that you're gonna like pull out from the text.
Oh yeah. When we come to the bits that have influenced the terror organisations, we'll talk about that and how it did and who was connected to it and that. So this is how he describes this radio setup or setting up the sort of communication system. Unit 2 is reasonably close to 2 other units, but all 3 are inconveniently far from the other 9 Washington area units, and especially from Unit 9, which was the only unit with a transmitter for contacting WFC. That WFC, he never explains it until later in the book. It stands for Washington Field Command. I was reading this book, and the fuck is WFC? Is it like Wrexham? Like, I thought it was the football club. I thought, Jesus, like they've changed. Anyway, so Unit 9, which was the only unit with a transmitter for contacting WFC. Because of this, WFC had decided to give Unit 2 a transmitter, but they hadn't been able to make it work. The reason for their difficulty became obvious as soon as they ushered me into the kitchen, where the transmitter, an automobile storage battery, and some odds and ends of wire were spread out on a table. Despite the explicit instructions, which I had prepared to go with each transmitter, and despite the plainly visible markings beside the terminals on the transmitter case, they had managed to connect the battery to the transmitter with the wrong polarity. I sighed and got a couple of their fellows to help me bring in my equipment from the car. First, I checked their battery and found it to be almost completely discharged. I told them to put the battery on the charger while I checked out the transmitter. Charger? What charger? They wanted to know. They didn't have one. Because of the uncertainty of the availability of electrical power from the lines these days, all our communication equipment is operated from storage batteries, which are trickle-down charged from the lines. This way, we're not subject to the power blackouts and brownouts, which have become a weekly, if not daily, phenomenon in recent years. Just as with most other public facilities in this country, the higher the price of electricity has zoomed, the less dependable it has become. In August of this year, for example, residential electrical services in the Washington area was out completely for an average of a total of 4 days, and the voltage was reduced by more than 15% for an average total of 14 days. The government keeps holding hearings and conducting investigations and issuing reports about the problem, but it just keeps getting worse. None of the politicians are willing to face the real issues involved here, one of which is the disastrous effect Washington's Israel-dominated foreign policy during the last 2 decades has had on America's supply of foreign oil. I showed them how to hook up the battery to the truck for the emergency charge, and then began looking into the transmitter to see what damage had been done. A charger for their battery would have to be found later. The most critical part of the transmitter, the coding unit, which generates the digital signal from the pocket calculator keyboard, seemed to be okay. It was protected by a diode from the damage due to a polarity error. In the transmitter itself, however, 3 transistors had blown. I was pretty sure WFC had at least one more spare transmitter in stock, but in order to find out, I would have to get a message to them, which meant sending a courier over to the Unit 9 to transmit a query, and then arranging to have someone from WFC deliver the transmitter to us. I hesitated to bother WFC in view of our policy of restricting radio transmitters from field units to messages of some urgency. Since Unit 2 needed a battery charger anyway, I decided to obtain the replacement transistors from a commercial supply house. At the same time, I picked up a charger, and then I installed them myself. Locating the parts I needed turned out to be easier said than done, however, and it was 6 p.m. when I finally got back to the farmhouse. I am sorry. I'm so sorry for that. I could see you both starting to die inside.
I mean, at least it's probably the least racist bit of the book I've heard.
There was a bit about Israel in there, but
That's what I started to giggle about. I was like, well, I forgot that we were even talking about the battery and stuff when he went off on a tangent there.
Yeah.
He just stuck a tangent right in the middle of it.
Right, so I did that on purpose because in the very next paragraph, what he does then is he drops one of the batteries on his foot and breaks his foot. And then he drives back to Chicago. And Catherine is waiting there for him. And I want you to remember how fucking long and boring that paragraph was about batteries. And then listen to how briefly he describes this sex scene. Because for reasons that are not explained, Catherine seduces him. Now, remember that took me about 10 fucking minutes to read that thing about the battery. I undressed, got a towel, and opened the door to the shower. And there was Catherine. Wet, naked and lovely, standing under the bare light bulb and drying herself. She looked at me without surprise and said nothing. I stood there for a moment, and then, instead of apologizing and closing the door, I impulsively held out my arms to Catherine. Hesitantly, she stepped towards me. Nature took her course. That's it. Right, do you see what I'm saying? Do you see how, like, he spent so long talking about fucking batteries and stuff like that, and then his sex scene is nature took her course?
Clearly some relationship between sexual repression and, like, fascism.
Potentially. I mean, it's not easy to write a Nazi-tinged fascist sex scene, like, if we're being fair.
True.
But it's not impossible. His generative order rose like Hitler's salute. He could feel the racial purity coursing through him and the pride of generations of white ancestors swelling within him. He trapped her in a pincer movement. His western front stood exposed. He swung round like the turret of a panzer, and he invaded her territory in blitzkrieg fashion, efficient, ruthless, crushing her defensive barriers. He gripped his stick grenade and slung it in the direction of her foxhole. She felt the mystical power of his spear of destiny. They became Ein Volk, and he declared victory. And I did try and get a Fokker in there as well, but I just couldn't think how to cram it in. But so as you can see, it's not impossible to write a fascist sex scene. He's just not.
Did you write that?
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, I wanted to show William Pierce that you can write a sexy Nazi scene.
I realised about 3 lines in, I was like, holy shit, it's Neil, he's done it.
Yeah, so
beautifully poetic and
thank
just
you. I was quite pleased with it.
Encrypted with fascist imagery. Like,
there you go. You know. It's not impossible. Like, you know, like so, like, yeah. You want to see my my Hitler Goebbels slash fiction. That's incredible. Anyway, Catherine, her previous life is described. It says, 4 years ago, before the gun raids, she was a congressman's secretary, because obviously that's the sort of jobs that women do.
Women do, right? Yeah.
She lived in her Washington apartment with another girl who also worked on Capitol Hill. One evening when Catherine came home from work, she found her apartment mate's body lying in a pool of blood on the floor. She had been raped and killed by a Negro intruder. He doesn't explain exactly how he knows that, but, again, just that's in there. And that's why Catherine bought a pistol and kept it even after the Cohen Act made gun ownership illegal. Then, along with nearly 1 million others, she was swept up in the gun raids of 1989. It's so reasonable when he explains it like that. It's fucking idiot, isn't it? Anyway, although she'd never had any previous contact with the organisation, she met George in the detention centre, and where they were both held after being arrested in the gun raids. And she'd been apolitical. And if anyone had asked her during her time that she was working for the government or before that, when she was a college student, she would have probably said that she was a liberal. But she was a liberal only in the mindless, automatic way that most people are. Without really thinking about it or trying to analyse it, she superficially accepted the unnatural ideology peddled by the mass media and the government. So she's very much the Dave Rubin of the group. She didn't leave the left. The left left her. And then obviously, she joined a terror organisation dedicated to eradicating people of colour. It's a tale as old as time. So it goes on. She had none of the bigotry, none of the guilt and self-hatred that it takes to make a really committed full-time liberal. After the police released him, George gave us some books on race and history and some organisation publications to read. For the first time in her life, she began thinking seriously about the important racial, social, and political issues at the roots of today's problems. She learned the truth about the system's equality hoax. She gained an understanding of the unique historical roles of the Jews as the ferment of the decomposition of race and civilization. More importantly, she began acquiring a sense of racial identity, overcoming a lifetime of brainwashing aimed at reducing her to an isolated human atom in a cosmopolitan chaos. Right, so they're brainwashing her whilst claiming that she's been brainwashed. They're literally using cult tactics. They explained how nothing was her fault, how the world really was, what her place in the world is, and then they surround her with like-minded people who love bomb her and give her an identity after she's gone through a massive trauma. Now, I don't think that was on purpose. Again, I just think that this is fucking. This is the whole thing. Basically, it's astonishing. Right. Then the unit receives orders. Now, see if you can spot who this next bit might have influenced. For the time being, however, there are problems to worry about, big ones. When George and Henry finally got back this evening, we found out what they've been doing all day, casing the FBI's national headquarters downtown. Our unit has been assigned with the task of blowing it up. The initial order came all the way down from Revolutionary Command, and a man was sent from the Eastern Command Centre to the WFC briefing George attended Sunday to look over the local unit leaders and pick one for the assignment. Apparently, Revolutionary Commanders decided to take the offensive against the political police before they arrest too many of our legals or finish setting up their computerized passport system. George was given the word after he was summoned by WFC for a second briefing yesterday. A man from Unit 8 was also at yesterday's briefing. Unit 8 will be assisting us. The plan roughly is this. Unit 8 will secure a large quantity of explosives between 5 and 10 tons. Our unit will hijack a truck, make a legitimate delivery to the FBI headquarters, rendezvous at the location where Unit 8 will be waiting with the explosives, and switch loads. We will then drive into the FBI building's freight receiving area, set the fuse, and leave the truck. While Unit 8 is solving the problem of the explosives, we have to work out all the other details of the assignment, including the determination of the FBI's freight delivery schedules and procedures. We've been given a 10-day deadline. My job will be to design the construction and the mechanism of the bomb itself. Yeah, that's starting the bit that heavily influenced Timothy McVeigh. It will go on, and he will explain in graphic detail how to make a bomb out of fertilizer, which is exactly what Timothy McVeigh did. So chapter 5 begins, and Turner spends about 3 pages explaining how a fucking security system works. But I'm not going to read it to you because it's terrible.
But again, this is just so fascinating how, because originally you said this was put out like in a magazine, right? Like in chapter form.
Yeah.
And how they've kind of like, I wonder if there was almost legal reasons why they've dressed up this story, which effectively is like a manual for their ideology, and then offering ways of building bombs, etc. Like they can basically put this out through their paper.
Well, it was they published it themselves basically. So this was the thing. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a
Trojan horse of propaganda.
Yeah. When I said that I had missed out the bit about the security system, I've not missed all of it out, but just most of it. So it continues. October the 3rd, 1991, which is actually 5 days before the release of Bad Motorfinger by Soundgarden, and also Cool as Ice by Vanilla Ice. Anyway, Turner continues. I've been breaking up my work on the FBI project with some handyman activity around our building. Last night I finished our perimeter alarm system, and today I did some rough and very dirty work on our emergency escape tunnel. Along both sides of the back of the building, I buried a row of pressure-sensitive pads which are wired to a light and an alarm buzzer inside. The pads are the sort of which are often installed under doormats inside stores to signal the arrival of a customer. They consist of 2-foot-long metal strips sealed inside a flexible plastic sheet, and they are waterproof. They're covered by an inch of soil and they're undetectable, but they will signal us if anyone steps on the ground above them. This method could not be used in front of our building because nearly all of the ground there is covered by the concrete driveway in the parking area. After considering and rejecting an ultrasonic detector for the front, I settled on a photoelectric beam with between 2 steel fence posts on either side of the concrete area. In order to keep the light source and photo cell unnoticeable, it was necessary to place them inside the fence post on one side, with a very small and inconspicuous reflector mounted on the other. I had to drill several holes in one post, and quite a bit of tinkering was necessary to make everything work properly. Fucking nerd. Isn't it? Like, do you remember how like brief that sex scene was? Like, Jesus Christ. Like, I'm telling you, the book is full of shit like that. It's a chore to get through. So, Turner completes the detonator for the planned FBI building bomb. The plan is to destroy the building with a truck bomb and thus stop the coming passport scheme. Have I ever told you my FBI building story?
No.
I was on holiday. I was about 15, and we went to Washington and went to the FBI building. Before you go in, you have to go through like metal detectors and like a scanner, and then you have to put all your belongings on one of those conveyor belts with an X-ray machine, like in an airport. So it's really strict security. And when we went in there, the man in front of me had his wallet stolen by somebody at the other end of the conveyor belt.
Oh my God!
So in the FBI building for 5 minutes, had his wallet stolen.
What year was this then?
1995, 6, something like that.
Oh, so a few years after the book.
Yeah. Luckily, I missed this. Like it was, lucky. Like particularly because I was in New York for a bit, and you don't want to spoil it, but it doesn't end well for New York. Anyway, 6 or 7 years ago, when they first started releasing trial balloons to see what the public reaction to the new passport system would be, it was said that its main purpose would be to detect illegal aliens so that they could be deported. Now, I just want to jump in there and say that this is exactly how, currently, Alex Jones is defending Palantir. Palantir is trying to it's the data mining tool, and they're trying to consolidate all different data streams into one sort of place where essentially Palantir will have what kind of is a database of American citizens and essentially all their data in one place, so there's no privacy. And Alex Jones, because he's basically up Trump's arse at the minute, and is trying to sort of court Peter Thiel, is explaining that they're not going to do it to normal citizens. They're only going to do it to track illegal immigrants and to punish the deep state. And I just thought that was interesting, that was what Earl Turner fears, and that's what Alex Jones is trying to promote at the minute. What a strange world we live in. Although some citizens were properly suspicious of the whole scheme, most swallowed the government's explanation of why the passports were needed. Thus, many labour unions who saw illegal aliens as a threat to their jobs during a time of high unemployment thought it was a fine idea, while liberals generally opposed it because it sounded racist, illegal aliens being virtually all non-white. Later, when the government granted automatic citizenship to everyone who had managed to sneak across the Mexican border and remain in the country for 2 years, the liberal opposition evaporated, except for a hardcore of libertarians who were still suspicious. All in all, it has been depressingly easy for the system to deceive and manipulate the American people, whether the relatively naive conservatives or the spoiled and pseudo-sophisticated liberals. Even the libertarians, inherently hostile to all government, will be intimidated into going along when Big Brother announces that the new passport system is necessary to find and root out racists, namely us. Also, there's a massive flaw in this as well, right? Okay. He's saying, illegal immigrants bring down wages. Well, now they've naturalised all of them. That problem's been solved. So it appears again that the problem seems to be just their existence and not actual economic strife or anything like that. Now, Turner laments on how America was lost, and see how similar this sounds to the totalitarian tiptoe, which is presented a lot by David Icke. If the freedom of the American people were the only thing at stake, the existence of the organization would hardly be justified. Americans have lost their right to be free. Slavery is the just and proper state for a people who have grown as soft, self-indulgent, careless, credulous, and befuddled as we all have. Indeed, we are already slaves. Fucking hell, steady on, Kanye. We've allowed a diabolically clever alien minority to put chains on our souls and our minds. These spiritual chains are a truer mark of slavery than the iron chains which are yet to come. Why didn't we rebel 35 years ago when they took our schools away from us and began converting them into racially mixed jungles? Why didn't we throw them? Why didn't we throw them all out of the country 50 years ago instead of letting them use us as cannon fodder in their war to subjugate Europe? I don't know what that means. And I've no idea. It's something racist. More to the point, why didn't we rise up 3 years ago when they started taking our guns away? Why didn't we rise up in righteous fury and drag these arrogant aliens into the streets and cut their throats then? Why didn't we roast them over bonfires at every street corner in America? Why didn't we make a final end to this obnoxious and eternally pushy clan, this pestilence from the sewers of the East, instead of meekly allowing ourselves to be disarmed? The answer is easy. We would have rebelled if all of that had been imposed on us in the last 50 years, if it had all been attempted at once. But because the chains that bind us were forged imperceptibly, link by link, we submitted. The adding of any single new link in the chain was never enough for us to make a big fuss about it. It always seemed easier and safer to go along. And the further we went, the easier it was to just go one step further. One thing the historians will have to decide, if any men of our race survive to write the history of this era, is the relative importance of deliberation and inadvertence in converting us from a society of free men to a herd of human cattle. That is, can we justly blame what has happened to us entirely on deliberate subversion carried out through the insidious propaganda of the controlled mass media, the schools, the churches, or the government? Or must we place a large share of the blame on the inadvertent decadence and the spiritually debilitating lifestyle into which the Western people have allowed themselves to slip in the 20th century? Probably the two things are intertwined, and it would be difficult to blame either cause separately. Brainwashing has made decadence more acceptable to us, and decadence has made us less resistant to brainwashing. In any event, we're too close to the trees now to see the outline of the forest. But one thing that is quite clear is that much more than our freedom is at stake. If the organisation fails in its task now, everything will be lost: our history, our heritage, all the blood and sacrifice and upward striving of countless thousands of years. The enemy we are fighting fully intends to destroy the racial basis of our existence. Now, aside from the racist angle of it, Doesn't that sound exactly like David Icke?
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
It sounds like most kind of narratives, conspiratorial narratives.
I'm not suggesting that David Icke has copied this or even that he was influenced by it. Just simply that basically, like, two things. One, this book is consciously using that conspiratorial thing.
Yeah.
And two, that sort of thing has spread again into the conspiracy through far right organizations, basically.
Can you also can we go back to that bit that you and I were both confused about with the Europe and the war a bit? Because I was thinking about it, and I think he might be talking about like Jewish people who came over,
I think he's
from the
talking about
Holocaust.
Jewish people. I think that's what he's
Holocaust
talking about.
survivors, right?
Yeah, there is a bit later where he makes references to. Well, there's several bits later where he makes references to Hitler, and so. Yes, I think you're absolutely right there. I think that is just like, and here's the stupid thing, right? Okay, this again shows you what the point of this book is. There's a certain demographic of people who will go, I know exactly who he's fucking talking about.
Yeah, dog
and
whistles.
then there'll be other people, quite. And then there'll be other people who have to think about it. But the thinking about it, in some ways, sort of legitimizes it because you sort of putting a certain a quasi-academic slant on it. You've reasoned it out. Oh, it must be Jewish people, and that's why this book is dangerous again, because people will go, shit, it makes sense. Like, not bright people, obviously, but like, people. So Turner and Henry are invited to a meeting of Revolutionary Command to discuss the planned bombing, but they're concerned about not having enough explosives. As carefully as we could, we calculated that we should have at least £10,000 of TNT or an equivalent explosive to destroy a substantial portion of the building and wreck the new computer centre in the sub-basement. To be on the safe side, we asked for £20,000. Instead, what we have is little under £5,000, and nearly all of that is ammonium nitrate fertilizer, which is much less effective than TNT for our purposes. So, Timothy McVeigh's bomb was also made with fertilizer in a very similar way, and so I'm just going to come away from the book a minute now, just to talk about a lot of the things that have been influenced by the book. In 1983, inspired by the Turner Diaries, 3 members of this group called the Covenant, the Sword, and the Arm of the Lord plotted to bomb the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building using a truck bomb. So they were going to do it nearly 12 years before Timothy McVeigh did it. And but the plan didn't go into action. They never sort of fulfilled it. The Covenant, the Sword, and the Arm of the Lord was a far-right survivalist anti-government militia group which advocated Christian identity and was active in the United States during the 1970s and early 1980s. Member Richard Wayne Snell, who died in April 1995, was an American white supremacist convicted of killing a pawn shop owner whom he mistook for a Jew, and a black police officer in Arkansas on November the 3rd, 1983 and June the 30th, 1984, respectively. So you could make the claim that he's copying the killings in the Turner Diaries. So the CSA believed that doomsday was imminent, and they had this 224-acre compound in a place called Elijah that it had acquired from Campus Crusade, and they basically had like a commune there, where it trained its members in paramilitary operations. The group was believed in white supremacy and was also very, very anti-Semitic. They believed that the United States government was what's called ZOG, which is a Zionist-occupied government. So essentially, that there's hidden influence from Israel and Jewish people, essentially. So in 1982, the military leader of the group who ran its end-time overcomer survival training camp and used the name Randall Raider during his stay at the compound left the group along with 30 of his followers in a rift with the leader, whose name was James Ellison, following the latter's attempt to take a second wife, basically. And so he went off and formed and joined another group, which was called the Order. And the Order is the one we spoke about earlier. Anyway, So the CSA initially professed that the United States government would dissolve due to its corruption, whereas the Order advocated revolution. And that was the difference, basically. However, basically, that changed in 1983. After this split, the CSA published a manifesto called ATTACK, ATTACK, Aryan Tactical Treaty for the Advancement of Christ's Kingdom. Oh dear. Which declared war on the government. So they started to copy the Turner Diaries, and they had assassins, and they basically practiced mock assassinations with sniper rifles. So very much like in the Turner Diaries. And they also had like a mock a residential center on the compound where they do like sort of SWAT tactic training and stuff like that. Basically, it all started to go downhill in the mid 80s, and the CSA stopped basically paying the mortgage on this ranch, and the bank foreclosed on them, and in the mid 80s, it took back control of it. Except that the group decided to squat on the land and sat there with a lot of guns, essentially trying to like provoke a sort of Waco come Ruby Ridge type siege, essentially, by the sounds of it. But the ATF did eventually sort of raid, and they decided. So the FBI sort of raided in 1985, and the ATF found there 155 Krugerrands, 1 live anti-tank rocket, 94 long guns, 30 handguns, 35 sawed-off shotguns, machine guns, 1 heavy machine gun, and a quantity of C4 plastic explosive. So they were stockpiling weapons, and they had plans to attack the government, but essentially were raided by the FBI due to financial mismanagement, essentially, not a particularly organised group, thankfully. So the Oklahoma City bombing occurred on the 10th anniversary of the start of the siege of that compound. Now, McVeigh actually stated that he chose the date of the 19th of April because he wanted to perpetrate the Oklahoma City bombing on the 2nd anniversary of the violent end of the Waco siege. But it's not clear what the motivation was. He may have just said that to sort of like just distance himself from the group once he got caught, basically. But on the other hand, McVeigh did actually travel to Waco, and he did cite that and Ruby Ridge as events that motivated him. So Timothy McVeigh perpetrated the Oklahoma City bombing, killing 168 people. And he was found with pages of the Turner Diaries in a plastic bag in his car after the attack. And several phrases were highlighted, including, "But the real value of all of our attacks lies today in the psychological impact, not in the immediate casualties. And we can still find them and kill them." So, now, McVeigh stated that while he did disagree with the book's racism, he agreed with its message on gun rights. I don't know, to be quite honest. But the book was actually the first piece of evidence that was shown during his trial. And witnesses testified that he was obsessed with the book and sold it at gun shows. And his attack was obviously very similar to the bombing of the FBI headquarters. He actually originally planned to bomb the FBI headquarters and then changed his mind. So after the bombing, obviously, that Barricade released the book to the general public. And Mark Potok of the Southern Poverty Law Center said in the aftermath that William Pierce doesn't build bombs, he builds bombers. Now, Pierce actually stated that his opinion on the bomb. Pierce at different times said that he supported the bombing, and then at other times he denounced it as desperate and foolish, basically. But then he sort of softened and said that he didn't think that it had happened at the right time. And then at other times he said that basically he approved of the bombing. Now, Timothy McVeigh was one of the people that basically, the Oklahoma bombing was one of the things that got Alex Jones started, because he felt that the guy was framed. Except the problem was that McVeigh confessed to it afterwards, and he also told his friend Michael Fortier of his plans to blow up the building. But Fortier didn't want to get involved, and he later told his wife, and then they were both sort of like questioned after the thing, after the bombing, and said, yeah, he's been talking about this for ages. He also composed 2 letters to the ATF. The first was titled "Constitutional Defenders," and the second, which just said "ATF read," and he denounced the government as fascist tyrants and stormtroopers, and he warned. And this will become clear. The swing bit will become clearer towards the end of the book. ATF, all you tyrannical motherfuckers will swing in the wind one day for your treasonous actions against the Constitution of the United States. Remember the Nuremberg war trials. And now he and a man called Terry Nichols constructed an ammonium nitrate fuel oil explosive device mounted in the back of a rented Ryder truck. The bomb was 5,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate, which is exactly the amount that was stated in the previous paragraph. So on April the 19th, 1995, McVeigh drove his truck to the front of the Alfred P. Murrah building just as his offices opened for the day. Before arriving, he stopped to light a 2-minute fuse. At 9:02, a large explosion occurred in the north half of the building, killing 168 people, including 19 children in the daycare centre, and injured 684 others. Now, McVeigh did say that he had not known that there was a daycare centre on the second floor and that he might have chosen a different target if he'd have known about that. But Terry Nichols said that both he and McVeigh knew that there was a daycare centre there in the building and they didn't care. In fact, they felt that that would be more effective. So, and this is a man that Alex Jones just continually defends. Now, when he was asked about killing people, and particularly killing the children, later, Timothy McVeigh used this analogy. Is it metaphor? I don't know. Think about the people as if they were stormtroopers in Star Wars. They may be individually innocent, but they're guilty because they work for the evil empire. Has everyone seen Clarks?
Yeah.
Clarks uses the same joke. There's a long bit about how in Jedi there would be independent contractors working on the Death Star, and they have a conversation about whether the terrorist organization would be ethical or not to kill these people, and they come to the conclusion that a contractor chooses jobs with his heart, not with his wallet, and so they would be justified in killing these people. Clarks came out in 1994. Did Clarks influence the ideology of the Oklahoma City bomber? Because if he did, I have to say that I suspect that he's probably misunderstood the message of the film. Like, I love Clarks. I like Mallrats. I like Clarks 2, Chasing Amy, Dogma, Jay and Silent Bob, Strike Back, Clarks animated series. I like Tusk. I like Red State. I like Hollywood Babylon. I like Jay and Silent Bob Get Old. I like the Jay and Silent Bob comics. I've never wanted to blow up a crash. So I think it's unfair to blame Kevin Smith. Now, what's interesting, right, okay, is that later he found a copy of a book called Unintended Consequences, which is a similar theme book about a war against the government after people's guns are taken off of them. But it's less over the top than the Turner Diaries. And he actually said that he wished he'd read that book instead, because what he would have done was carried out a campaign of individual assassinations instead of bombing. But he decided that the message would be more powerful if lots of people were killed. Now, his criteria for the attack site was that it should hold at least 2 of the 3 federal law enforcement agencies, the ATF, the FBI, and the DEA, and all 3 of those were in the Alfred P. Murrah building. So he also considered targets in Missouri, Arizona, Texas, and Arkansas, but he said that he wanted to minimize non-governmental casualties. So he decided the Alfred P. Murrah federal building, which is, it basically had 14 federal agencies. It had the DEA, the ATF, the Social Security Administration, recruiting officers for the Army, and recruiting officers for the Marine Corps. And he also chose it because he expected the glass front to shatter and it to look good, essentially. And he says that he thought because of the shape of it that other buildings would be protected. I don't know. He blew up a crash. Give a fuck what he says about that. To be quite honest, he's foregone any sympathy, obviously.
And I think, just to kind of come in there, Neil, like I think, like you looking at the real consequences from the book is really sobering. Like, I know we've kind of been laughing as we're kind of picking it apart, and I think you have to laugh at it because it is so ludicrous. But then also on the flip side is, like, this book is actually a dangerous piece of kind of propaganda, and we actually see like the real consequences of how it's dehumanized and kind of politicized people that they're willing to blow up creches and as some part of some kind of revolutionary kind of act. So yeah, just really kind of heightens how dangerous and that this book is as a piece of propaganda.
Now, you may have noticed the date, April 19th, 1995. He said that it was to coincide with the second anniversary of the Waco siege, also the 220th anniversary of the battles of Lexington and Concord during the American Revolution. But it also happened on the day, the planned execution day of Richard Snell, who's the white supremacist from the Covenant, the Sword, and the Arm of the Lord. He was basically due to be executed on that day. And prior to his execution, Snell predicted that a bombing would take place on the day of his execution. How he knew this, people don't know. Also, Snell had made threats to blow up the very same building as revenge for the IRS raiding his home. So whether they were connected is debated, but could well be. Now, Timothy McVeigh was caught in a traffic stop, fleeing the bombing with because his car had no license plate. Now, he had a gun on him, and I think he had a T-shirt on that said "Sic Temporis," like death to tyrants, basically. And anyway, there is a very good reason why he was caught. Because you're thinking, he's killed all these people. Why don't you shoot the policeman? Do you know why he didn't shoot the policeman?
I do.
Yeah.
I know this one. Because allegedly, that he went and saw William Cooper.
Yes.
And was speaking to him about stuff. And they talked about what would you do if you got stopped by the cops.
Pulled over, yeah.
And Timothy McVeigh said, I'd shoot him. And Bill Cooper was like, no, that's like the worst thing to do. Don't ever just shoot the policeman.
Just take the ticket and go. Basically, yeah.
Yeah, so he influenced him not to actually shoot someone. So
absolutely.
Ironically, Bill Cooper then goes and shoots fucking policemen in his own death. But hey,
and for people that don't know, Bill Cooper wrote "Behold a Pale Horse," which contains Protocols of the Elders of Zion, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, and what's the other fucking one that's in it? The Report from Iron Mountain. All three of which are fake documents, but all three of which have heavily, heavily influenced conspiracy culture ever since, basically. Now, do you know how Alex Jones gets around the idea that Timothy McVeigh has continually confessed to the bombing? Mind control. Because apparently Timothy McVeigh, he claimed to have had a tracking chip implanted into his buttocks. Yeah, whether he did or not, it's difficult to know, basically. But yeah, he also
was that before or after he was arrested?
Oh, this was when he was in the army, so he was previously in the army.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Basically, so
a pretty paranoid guy.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, he wrote a 1,200 word essay from prison. And in this, he claimed that the bombing was morally equivalent to US military actions against Iraq and other foreign countries, which it isn't. And on April the 26th, 2001, McVeigh wrote a letter to Fox News. I explain herein why I bombed the Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, and it explicitly laid out his reasons for the attack. he read the novel Unintended Consequences in 1996 after he'd been arrested, and said basically he wished he'd read it earlier because he wouldn't have blown up the building. He'd have just gone on a campaign of assassination instead. So it's it's grim.
It's easily swayed kind of guy.
Certainly seems that way. Like very much so. So anyway, back to the exciting tales of Earl Turner. So if you remember, they're plotting to blow up the FBI building in the way that Timothy McVeigh would go on to, and the two of the organisation go missing, presumably arrested, but they decide to go ahead with the bombing anyway. But they worry that the original plan will only kill hundreds and not necessarily damage the building or the computer system enough. So what we finally decided is to attempt to get our bomb directly into the first level basement, which also has a freight entrance on 10th Street next to the main freight entrance. If we detonate our bomb in the basement underneath the courtyard, the confinement will make it substantially more effective. It will almost certainly collapse the basement floor into the sub-basement, burying the computers. Furthermore, it will destroy most, if not all, the communications and power equipment for the building, since those are in the basement levels. The big unknown is whether it will do enough structural damage to the building to make it uninhabitable for an extended period. So, yeah, class act, basically. So, we're now on to Chapter 6, and Chapter 6 starts October 13th, 1991, which they don't mention, but is 2 days before As Ugly as They Want to Be by Ugly Kid Joe redefines rock and roll. And it was really well welcomed because, again, I don't know if people remember, but this was an era when in the UK, Bryan Adams' single Everything I Do from the Robin Hood Prince of Thieves soundtrack and at this point spent 14 weeks at the top of the singles charts. It is unclear if that influenced the organisation, but it would be almost impossible for it not to have been quite a major factor.
Somehow.
It was definitely absolutely the soundtrack to it.
Yeah.
Rocking up, saying that. At 9:15 yesterday morning, our bomb went off in the FBI's National Headquarters building. Our worries about the relatively small size of the bomb were unfounded. Oh, thank God. The damage is immense. We have certainly disrupted a major portion of the FBI's headquarters operations for at least the next several weeks, and it looks like we've also achieved our goal of wrecking their new computer complex. So how they do it is they follow and steal a delivery truck. They kill the black driver, obviously, and they fill it with fertilizer and dynamite. Overturned trucks and automobiles, smashed office furniture and building rubble was strewn wildly about, and so were the bodies of shockingly large numbers of victims. Over everything hung the pall of black smoke, burning our eyes and lungs, and reducing the bright morning to semi-darkness. So Henry calls the Washington Post and says, 3 weeks ago, you and yours killed Carl Hodges in Chicago, and we're now settling the scores with your pals in the political police. Soon we'll settle the score with you and all other traitors. White America shall live. And in case everyone had forgotten, Carl Hodges had been involved in the killing of 3 policemen. They also killed 2 other people after that. So it's not really settling the score, is it? So, they were concerned that the bomb wasn't going to kill enough people. It killed over 700 people. And the organisation concludes that in order to smash the system, and hear them out, what they're going to have to do is start killing innocent people. And not just a few innocent people, thousands of innocent people. And they rationalise that they've been forced into this position by Jewish liberal, democratic, equalitarian plagues and feminine infantile liberals, and they explain that the concept of races living together in harmony is an alien Oriental idea. And no, I've got no fucking clue what that means either. But remember, just a few chapters earlier when they were like, we can't just kill people willy-nilly. And now they've decided that the best
now
way
they're full on genocides.
Yeah, they've decided that they're going to kill thousands and thousands of innocent people. Even those who do not consciously accept the liberal doctrines have been corrupted by them. Decade after decade, the race problem in America has become worse. But the majority of those who wanted a solution, who wanted to preserve a white America, were never able to screw up the courage to look to the obvious solutions in their face. Mass murder. That's the obvious solution. Mass murder of not only non-whites, but also of innocent people for reasons. It continues. All the liberals and the Jews had to do was begin screeching about inhumanity or injustice or genocide. And most of our people who had been beating around the edges of the solution, which I'll remind you is mass murder, took to their heels like frightened rabbits. Because there was never a way to solve the race problem which would be fair for everybody, or which anyone concerned could be politely persuaded into accepting without any fuss or unpleasantness. They kept trying to evade it, hoping that it would go away by itself. And the same has been true of the Jewish problem, and the immigration problem, and the overpopulation problem, and the eugenics problem, and 1,000 related problems. Now, two things. This is uncomfortably close to the rhetoric of Reform UK and GB News.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And also, they have preserved the white race. They're all fucking white. The entirety of the terror organisation is white. Right? And when they say, like, to solve the problem, there would never be a solution that was satisfactory to everybody. They mean them. And the reason that they're not satisfied is because they don't want black people to exist. Like, they then decide to complain about the media. And it is already terribly clear that the controlled media intend to convince the public that what we are doing is terrible. They are deliberately emphasising the suffering we have caused by interspersing gory close-ups of the victims with tearful interviews with their relatives. You're killing innocent people. You've just killed 700 people. Like, okay,
damn liberal media.
Now, at this point, one or both of you might start to get quite cross. They complain that the media was always sympathetic to other terrorist organisations, like the Black Panthers, because they were both black and Marxists. And I'd like to point out that the media were never sympathetic to the Black Panthers. Certainly not because they were black or Marxists. Now, it goes on.
And that's so far from any kind of historical truth or reality.
That might be a running theme as the book continues.
Yeah, it's truly through the looking glass of ideology.
Well, he explains his complaints about how the media treated the Black Panthers like heroes, and when belonged to the Communist Party, helped plan a courtroom shootout, and even supplied the shotgun for which a judge was murdered, the press formed a cheering section at her trial and tried to make a folk hero out of her. Now, this is a reference to Angela Davis.
Yeah.
Like, who was put on the FBI's 10 most wanted list and called a terrorist by Nixon in the media. Right? Okay. What happened was, the reason that there was a cheering section at her trial, and it wasn't from the media, it was because she was found not guilty. There was these brothers called the Soledad brothers, and they were accused of killing a prison guard. And two people who she was friends with stole the shotgun that I forget whether she'd bought it for them or whether it's her shotgun, but they stole her shotgun and used it to try and break these people out of jail. But she wasn't involved in any way. And John Lennon actually wrote a song about her called Angela. But that's what they're referring to then. And as you quite rightly said, it's completely through the looking glass in regards to the reality of the situation. Now they start to stockpile bombs, grenades, landmines, and ammo. And Catherine starts to complain that she wants to be involved in all of this. Because basically they've just had her at home cooking and cleaning. Because she's a woman. Now, we were all under a bit of tension following the big bombing, and Catherine came across a bit shrill, almost like a woman's liver. Note to the reader, woman's lib was a form of mass psychosis which broke out during the last 3 decades of the old era. Women affected by it denied their femininity and insisted that they were people, not women. This aberration was promoted and encouraged by the system as a means of dividing our race against itself. Like, that's insane. But it's also it's the trad wives attitude that's what they want. The women are basically objects and things that you own. Now, this next bit is quite telling, because Turner writes that there is a potential problem that might be happening in the house. We have not flaunted our relationship, but it is not likely that either Henry or George has failed to guess by now that Catherine and I are lovers. This creates a rather awkward situation for all of us. Completely aside from the fact that Henry and George are both healthy males and Catherine is the only female among us, is the problem of organisational discipline. Now, let's unpack that. 2 things. 1, he's saying that basically women are simply sexual objects for men. And 2, and I don't know whether I've misread that, but he seems to be saying that Henry and George might very well rape Catherine because they are healthy men. That's how it comes across to me, basically. And they might even do it just out of jealousy that he's in a relationship with her, which is, it's crazy.
I don't know where this is going.
Oh, it goes some places. it goes some bizarre, stupid, and ultimately quite ironic places. But we'll get there. Chapter 7. Our unit has carried out 3 missions in the last 6 days. Altogether, the organisation is held responsible for more than 200 separate incidents in different parts of the country, according to news reports. We are really into the thick of the guerrilla war now. And that's ironic because, as I say, in the real world, it's responsible for at least 200 murders. So Turner decides to throw a grenade and an anti-tank bomb through the window of the Washington Post press room. But they don't actually really disrupt the paper that much, so they decide to kill an editorial writer. After looking over the newspaper, we settled on the editorial page editor, who had written a particularly vicious editorial against us. His words dripped with Talmudic hatred. Racist.
Wow.
For God's sake.
Never letting it go, is he?
Oh, no. Racists like us, he said, deserve no consideration for the police or any decent citizen. We should be shot down on sight like mad dogs, which is quite a contrast with his usual solicitude for black rapists and murderers and his tirades against police brutality and overreaction. And they also destroy a TV transmitter. And they complain that the media is biased against them. And they use a specific person as an example of someone that was persecuted by the media. Would you like to take a guess at this spectacularly bad example? It's somebody that you both know, not personally, and shall we say he's a bit of a hero to some on the far right. We're going to have to invoke Godwin's law here, I'm afraid. It's Hitler.
Oh, of course. Okay. Yeah.
Earl says...
I'm trying to think of like loads of people from the 60s.
Try to think of something sensible, weren't you? Something not fucking ridiculous.
Not so obvious.
You'll know him.
Who's been persecuted by the media? Oh, that fucking Hitler. He had a hell of a time with the old media. So Earl says in the Turner Diaries, what's happening now is reminiscent of the media campaign against Hitler and the Germans back in the 1940s.
Oh no.
Stories about Hitler flying into rages and chewing carpets, phony German plans for the invasion of America, babies being skinned alive to make lampshades and then boiled down into soap, girls kidnapped and sent to Nazi stud farms. The Jews convinced the American people that these stories were true, and the result was World War II. With millions of the best of our race butchered by us and all of Eastern and Central Europe turned into a huge communist prison camp. Now let's unpack
a lot of historical flaws.
Yeah, there's some there, isn't there? Like, it wasn't stories of persecution of the Jews that started World War II. Let's just start with that. That's not how it happened at all, was it? Like, what he's referring to there is the concept of this was like, it was actually Russian propaganda. The idea that they were making lampshades and furniture and soap out of Jews. I don't think it was true. Certainly not on any mass scale. But there was plenty of atrocities against the Jews. But this all, again, came out in the latter part of the war. But this idea about how, I love this bit at the beginning, how the media campaign against Hitler by suggesting that he flew into rages. Yeah, because when I think of all the terrible things that Hitler's done, like that's what I think of. Like, oh, he had a right temper on him.
He's always losing his rag. Yeah.
And the next bit, flying into rages and chewing carpets. Is he suggesting that Hitler was a bocat? Is that really what he's saying? Yeah. I don't know. But anyway, stud farms refers to a concept called joy division brothels. Now, actually, there were sort of Lebensraum living space was encouraged, and in order to do that, they were having a lot of sex to try and create a lot of babies. But the concept of the joy division actually came from a fictional book called The House of Dolls. Now, a huge amount of rape no doubt occurred, but there's no real evidence of forced prostitution. Also, the USA was at war because of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Like this idea of the Nazis to invade America, stuff like this. Again, it's just bizarre, ahistorical bullshit.
It's just the fascists kind of trying to retell the story of World War II and trying to get around the patriots who fought against Nazis. It's not
about facts; it's about feelings.
Yeah.
But ironically, what's stupid about this is when this is being put out and stuff, right? And this is one of the reasons why sort of anti-Semitism didn't sort of pick up as early as it might have done in a lot of places, because Holocaust denial specifically, because there were people alive there that have been in camps. Right, a lot of people were like, no, this actually fucking happened. Like, do you know what I mean? So, like, it's bizarre that they would put out such ahistorical shit, basically.
It's not really that bizarre for far-right Holocaust denial people to revise history. History revision is pretty much their thing.
It's their bread and butter, isn't it, really? Just, but it's just amazing that they could get away with it so close to the actual time, because it's just like, there's people there who will have vivid memories of the reality of it. But so anyway, Turner has to execute a traitor. Harry Powell was Unit 5's leader. Last week, when Washington Field Command... That's the first fucking time that they mentioned Washington Field Command. Like, I couldn't believe it. It's like, that's what it means. Why didn't you mention that earlier? Like, and why did he say Washington Field Command? He said WFC at never mind. Right. It gave his unit the assignment of assassinating two of the most obnoxious and outspoken advocates of racial mixing in the area, a priest and a rabbi. He tried to get them as they walked into a bar. The priest and the rabbi were co-authors of a widely publicized petition to Congress requesting special tax advantages for racially mixed married couples. Powell refused the assignment. He sent a message back to WFC saying that he was opposed to the further use of violence and that his unit would not participate in any acts of terrorism. His basic complaint was that all our acts of terror against the system were only making things work by provoking the system into taking more and more repressive measures. Well, of course, we all understood that, or at least I thought we all understood it. Apparently, Powell didn't. That is, he didn't understand that one of the major purposes of political terror, always and everywhere, is to force the authorities to take reprisals and to become more repressive, thus alienating a portion of the population and generating sympathy for the terrorists. And the other purpose is to create unrest by destroying the population's sense of security and their belief in the invincibility of the government. Someone asked him whether he'd forgotten what the organization has repeated over and over, namely that our struggle is to secure the future of our race. Now, what does that remind you of?
Oh, the 14 words.
14 words.
David Lane in the 14 words. Yeah, David Lane, American domestic terrorist, white separatist, neo-Nazi, convicted felon. He was a former Klansman who later joined the neo-Nazi Christian identity group Aryan Nation. And he was also a member of the terrorist organization, The Order. And he was convicted and sentenced to 190 years in prison for racketeering, conspiracy, and the violation of the civil rights of Alan Berg, a Jewish radio talk show host who prosecutors claim was murdered by a member of the group via a drive-by shooting, with Lane acting as the driver. Though they didn't actually get a conviction for the murder, but they did get him on RICO, essentially. And he coined the 14 words.
In that movie, in The Order, you see him like reading the book and reading it to his kid, like for bedtime stories. Crazy.
Yeah, insane. Like, the primary slogan of the 14 words is, we must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children. And the secondary slogan is, because the beauty of the white Aryan woman must not perish from the earth. And Lane also wrote the 88 Precepts. And this is a treatise on his views on race, politics, and philosophy. And 88 is basically
Heil Hitler.
Heil Hitler, yeah, quite. It's not a reference. It's a reference to the actual Hitler, not to the Kanye West song. So, but Lane viewed these as the principles behind the 214 words slogan. And you know what Lane also came up with? He came up with the idea that immigration is white genocide. So this concept that basically forced immigration is white genocide, or is akin to white genocide, the Great Replacement theory. Well, the Great Replacement was Renard Camus, but the concept of calling immigration white genocide came from David Lane. So if anyone ever uses the phrase white genocide, they're using hardcore Nazi propaganda from a Nazi that was influenced by the Turner Diaries. And a huge amount of people use the concept of white genocide. It's almost interchangeable with the Great Replacement theory. Both are Nazi concepts, obviously, but that specifically is connected.
Even Donald Trump was amplifying the ideas of white genocide in South Africa and stuff.
Yeah, very much so. Which is also, again, not true. Like, basically, like it's ridiculous. So Turner executes the mutineer. There was one way to deal with such a situation. The 8 male members present drew straws, and 3 of us, including me, ended up on the execution squad. When Powell realised that he was going to be killed, he tried to make a break. We tied his hands and feet, and then we had to gag him when he began shouting. We drove him to a wooded area off the highway about 10 miles south of Washington, shot him, and buried him. Chilling.
Very descriptive.
Yeah, absolutely.